Looking for NFL football? Stop right here. You found your home for weekly NFL talk and fantasy football. Coming to you live from the BackupPunter.com. This is the Backup Punter Podcast. Now, here's your host, the man who thinks fullbacks win championships, Keegan Matheson.
What's up? This is episode 34 of the Backup Punter Podcast. My name's Keegan Matheson. Back with you again. Find me on Twitter at Keegan Matheson. And find the podcast on Twitter at the Backup Punter. Thank you again for joining. This is episode 34. We're going to get into what Week 11 wasn't, what it could have been, what it should have been, and the many injuries that came out of Week 11, especially the concussion to Case Keenum. We'll dive into that a little bit. Now, the Backup Punter Podcast studios, as we call them, they are under construction in and around today. So if you hear some noise in the background, it's not you, it's me. And I was going to wait a little bit, put the podcast out late in the day, but I thought, no. We'll just consider this like our raw version. You know when a band puts out an unplugged album? Just one of these artsy unplugged albums? This will be my artsy unplugged podcast, we'll say. And as always, this Artsy Unplugged podcast is brought to you by the good people at DynastySportsEmpire.com. Fantasy sports, NFL, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball. DynastySportsEmpire.com have got you covered. They have leagues, content, rankings, projections, whatever you need fantasy sports-wise. So check them out online. That's DynastySportsEmpire.com. DynastySportsEmpire.com. Check them out. Tell them I sent you. So, coming off the Monday night game, the game that I was worried would not end in time for this podcast to be released on Tuesday. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots versus Rex Ryan and the Buffalo Bills. And it was was it good football? I don't know. It was at least competitive football, so we'll give it that. But repeated errors by the officiating crew going both ways at all points in the game, and that's the big conversation topic for today. But you know what? Unless it's something blatantly idiotic, I don't like to pile onto the referees. I mean, we have the benefit of instant replay, not being there on the field, seeing it live speed with a lot of other things going on. So, I never like to pile on referees. But, there were some repeated incidents of inaccuracies, we'll call it. The inadvertent whistle, I think, was the hashtag from last night. That game must have taken 6 hours. Everything was an injury, a timeout, a flag, a conversation, Rex Ryan going bananas on the sideline. So it was an interesting one, but hey, competitive football nonetheless, and God, it was better than Thursday night football. Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Tennessee Titans. And I watched this game, of course, because I like to be terrible to myself, I guess. Was it a self-punishment? Was I grumpy? Why did I watch this game? I don't know. The Jacksonville Jaguars and their diarrhea gold jerseys versus the Titans in some baby blue jerseys that kind of looked like, what was it, late 90s, where a lot of the rappers would wear kind of the top to bottom, sweatpants, sweatshirt that were the same color, that baby blue. Maybe with a bucket hat to go along with it. Looked a lot like that, but at least it wasn't as bad. And I think that was the worst game of the year. So let's not talk about it. It wasn't a good time overall. But injuries were a big thing this week. One that killed me to see was Justin Forsett of the Baltimore Ravens. Went down with a fractured arm. Some people called the tackle dirty. That shouldn't be the takeaway from this. It was just a hard-ass tackle. It could have been gentler, but unfortunate, especially to see something bad happen to someone who is legitimately one of the good guys in the league. Justin Forsett is one of the good guys. Took the long road to where he is, but thankfully, he got that the contract entering this season. I would have hated to see this going into his contract negotiations, so at least he's secure. He's paid. Devonta Freeman came up with a concussion. Maybe Tevin Coleman is going to get some action there. Charkandrick West injured. Marshawn Lynch miss the game. But at least in Baltimore, you're going to see a lot more of Javorius Allen, Buck Allen. You're going to hear both names. That's the same guy. I've gotten that question a couple times. And I've seen, I forget who it was that retweeted it. Somebody asked if they should add, Javorius Allen, another guy, or Buck Allen. And but they're the same guy, Javorius Buck Allen. He'll be the guy in Baltimore. They're going to see what they have. But unfortunately, this one kills me. Because if you listen to this podcast, you know that I'm maybe not a Joe Flacco fan, but I'm a supporter, a believer. Kind of like that terrible thing I have for Jay Cutler, I guess. But Joe Flacco, torn ACL, done for the year. I believe the MCL is also torn, which is worrying. He's out for the year. I hope that he can come back in time for the start of 2016, because that Baltimore Ravens team is going to be one that really takes a jump, I think. I think they are going to finish right near the bottom of the league this year, and at this point in the year, they probably want to. If you're going to suck, be the worst. Get the pick and go from there. But coming from that point, they're going to be putting in Matt Schaub, which is absolutely terrifying. Terrifying. The pick six master himself. So they're going to be an interesting streaming defense option if you're going to look for a defense going against them. So the Baltimore Ravens, tough break in a season of tough breaks. Looking elsewhere around the league, now, obviously, the big story of the week, let's get into this. Case Keenum, St. Louis Rams. Now, towards the end of the game, if you weren't watching the St. Louis Rams game, unbelievable. St. Louis Rams, Case Keenum gets tackled. He gets sacked, but it wasn't a drag-down sack. It was a kind of a spinning throw to the ground. And his head contacts the ground, and very obviously, it's not one of these things where he gets up slow. He kind of stumbled. It was bad. So Case Keenum, he's allowed to stay in the game. Nobody takes him out. The independent neurologist spotter doesn't do anything about it. Doesn't at all. Jeff Fisher doesn't do anything about it. The other coaches don't do anything about it. Next play, he fumbles, looks a little disoriented, and they lose the game. So this has turned into the hot button topic of the week. It really has. So coming from this point, a lot of the anger has been directed at Jeff Fisher. And I'm going to tell you why that's... not that I'm against that, but I don't think it should be all going towards Jeff Fisher. I really don't. And I think Jeff Fisher just has kind of a bad rap in media circles. A lot of the top NFL media insiders, the NFL guys that everyone follows, they have a bit of a hate-out for Jeff Fisher, and I suppose maybe he hasn't earned the reputation as a solid NFL coach. Maybe a lot of people don't like how he runs a team, stuff like this, so maybe it's a little easier to be hard on the guy. I don't think he deserves 100% of the blame like he's getting here. And, they're not handling it the best either, but think of what Jeff Fisher is doing. I'd love to see a video of Jeff Fisher's eyes as the play is happening. Is he watching Case Keenum? Is he looking at his play sheet? Is he talking to an assistant coach or a coordinator trying to get another play in? Is he turning around and telling one of the running backs, get in there, you're in for the next play? I mean, if Jeff Fisher is staring at Case Keenum and visually, you can see him mumbling, oh, is that a concussion? Oh, no, he's okay. And I don't think that's the case, right? Is it something Jeff Fisher should have been aware of? Yes. But I'm not willing to put 100% on him. I'm really not. There are coordinators, assistant coaches, trainers on the sideline, and have a trainer try to tell a coach to take a timeout. Yeah, see how that goes. But really, this is the independent neurologist, the concussion spotter. It's their job. It's entirely their job to catch this. This is similar to, if you listen to last week's podcast, episode 33, kind of how the NFL had the new team in place, new personnel to handle the domestic violence cases with Greg Hardy, and there was the Deadspin transcript or the report of how that appeal process went. And you were kind of left thinking, well, you put all of these actions in place, but they're not doing anything. It's not helping or changing anything. That's what we're seeing here. The NFL has put everything in place, but that hasn't done anything. So how do you improve this? And that's what they have to look at. Everyone is just trashing this. Oh, this is disgraceful. The NFL sucks. Well, great, fantastic. We know the NFL sucks. How do you improve this? Well, do you have 11 neurologists, with one of them watching the left end versus the right tackle, another one watching the defensive tackle versus the center? How overkill do you go? Or do you have, maybe you add another neurologist, one watching each team, something, because it's ridiculous for them to miss this. Now, I would have understood it a little bit more if, say, Case Keenum had have gotten a pass off. Maybe the ball goes downfield and he's pushed to the ground. Maybe the neurologist, his eyes follow the ball or something. Guilty. It's hard not to. But this was a play that was not only a sack, but it was an impact sack. Grabbed, wrapped up, and thrown to the ground. And that's something you've got to see. And it's adding on. Case Keenum has been diagnosed with a concussion, obviously. Is he going to miss next week? Who knows if Nick Foles is in there. But I'm trying to remember who I saw tweet this out. And I will try to retweet it from at the Backup Punter, because I don't just want to use this and not give the guy credit, because it was fascinating. But going into next week, 14 teams will have started their backup quarterback by week 12. And that's fascinating. And it really shows, a lot of these have been due to injury, a lot performance, but it shows how needy the quarterback position is. 14 teams. So you're getting close to 50 quarterbacks have started an NFL game this year. There is there's room for improvement on a lot of these QB depth charts, but it's getting tough. Another one who made their first start this past week, Brock Osweiler, the Wizard of Osweiler, started in Denver for Peyton Manning, and this is turning into a fascinating situation of its own. Peyton Manning, is he hurt? Yes, obviously he's hurt. He's going for a second opinion, and whenever you hear someone getting a second opinion, that's bad. If I go to the doctor and they say, you know what, Keegan, your arm is not broken. You're fine, just rest it, your arm is not broken. Am I going to say, hey, well, you know what, I don't trust you. I'm going to go see if another doctor will tell me it's broken. Doesn't that seem a bit bizarre? But if the doctor tells me, there's a slight break in there, I might not like that news. And I might say, I'm going to get it checked somewhere else too, just to see. Well, that's what's happening with Peyton Manning and his foot, I think. I think he got some bad news from the team doctors, and he is not wanting to take that as the gospel, so he's going somewhere else. So for Peyton Manning, does this turn into a benching? What do you think? I think it should. I truly do. Brock Osweiler, did he look great? I don't know. There was some very good game calling. Give some credit to the Broncos coaching staff. They protected Osweiler well. They put him in the right situations, and they got him successful. They not spoon-fed. He did it a lot himself, but they put him in good positions. When he's forced to move in the pocket, he still kind of looks like a bit of a baby giraffe. So there's some problems there, but how is Peyton Manning a better option? Then there was the rumor that he wanted to play in 2017, regardless of 2016. Yikes. 2016. So he wants to play again next year, even if it's not with the Broncos. That is troubling, in my opinion. But anyways, let's get into our weekly studs and duds from the week that was. We'll get some questions along the way. Jameis Winston leads off our stud team, and as much as I have bashed the guy for several reasons, on Sunday, Week 11 NFL football, if you're looking at it through that scope, he was very good. 246 yards, 5 touchdowns. Got an email question from a friend of the show this week, Ryan Andrews, asking, is he a legitimate QB1 now? And almost. I mean, look at the quarterback play. Every year in fantasy, but this year more than ever, you get your top 5 or 6 QBs, and then you've got about 15 guys who are QB1. You know what I mean? Jameis Winston, I do want to see him do this without Doug Martin rushing for 250. I want to see that happen. And also, Philadelphia's defense was awful. Awful. And I'll give you one quick example just to help you see what I was seeing. There was a 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 5, I believe. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers spread the field 5 wide with Charles Sims, the furthest receiver to the right. Charles Sims ran a simple slant, was left wide open, and picked up 4 or 5 yards. First down for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they ran the ball twice or whatever. Anyways, 2 plays later, they are back to 3rd and middle, 3rd and 5 or so. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers split the field 5 wide with Charles Sims, the furthest receiver to the right. What happens? He runs a slant, and he's wide open, and he makes it. It was the exact same play within about 2 minutes of running it on the exact same down. And Philadelphia didn't even register what was happening. That was ridiculous. So, Jameis Winston got some help from the run game and from his opponent, but I think he's in the place where he can catapult himself into QB1. I don't think he was ready for that before this week. Looking at the running backs, we've got Thomas Rawls, who went 30 rushes for 209 and a score, 3 catches for 46 and a score. Doug Martin comes in at RB2, 27 rushes for 235 yards and no touchdown. Doug. Eddie Lacy deserves a little credit here, too. Didn't make the cut, but 100 yards, he might be back. Wide receiver 1, DeAndre Hopkins. 5 catches for 118 and 2 touchdowns. He is turning into a guy that's kind of matchup proof. It's fascinating. Wide receiver 2, James Jones. I did not believe he had much left, but he does apparently. I don't know about next week, though. Don't ride the wave too hard. 6 catches for 109 and a score, plus a 2-point conversion. Wide receiver 3, Tyler Lockett. The Lockettes and Locketts, they get me mixed up. Tyler Lockett, 4 catches for 48 yards and 2 scores. Had a 5-yard run, too. Looks like the Seahawks are really going to start integrating him. He's a guy that I kind of want on the bottom of my roster. Tight end, Kyle Rudolph, 6 catches for 109 and a score. Big week, but it's the first time he's had over 2 receptions since week 2. I'm not buying it. And the defense, Tampa Bay Bucks versus Philadelphia. 17 points allowed, 3 sacks, 3 picks, fumble recovery, and a touchdown. What a week. Looking at the Peyton Manning dud team, I can't name them to the duds, so I have to name the team after him. Phillip Rivers, 178 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. San Diego is out of sorts. They are treading water, as they have been for several years, and it's depressing to watch. RB1, Lamar Miller, 7 rushes for 44 yards, 2 catches for 11 yards. I hope so badly that Lamar Miller can get out of Miami, out of that situation. He's too talented to be wasted there. And then RB2, everyone's going to hate me for this, but I have to. Danny Woodhead, 6 rushes for 7 yards and 1 reception for 9 yards. The Chargers lost 33-3. That's a game where Danny Woodhead should be putting up 100 yards from scrimmage, reception after reception. That's a curious one. Going on to wide receiver 1, I've got Amari Cooper here. A dud day for him and for a lot of Raiders. 1 reception, 4 yards, but he'll bounce back. Wide receiver 2, Jordan Matthews, 4 catches for 13 yards. He's still running as their number 1 receiver, but with Mark Sanchez, I don't know. And then wide receiver 3, Tavon Austin. 1 catch for 16 yards, a rush for 5 yards, but a fumble. That's too bad. He's still a guy I really believe in, but he's such a dice roll. At this time of the year, you don't want him in the lineup. Then Antonio Gates. Phillip Rivers takes his tight end onto the dud team. It's tradition. Antonio Gates with 1 catch for 6 yards. Then, things keep getting bad for Philly. They win the dud defense. 39 points allowed. Just 1 sack into fumble recovery. Not gonna do it. So let's check out some quick waivers here. We're going to keep this one another quick show. I like to get in and out. What you need to know, nothing you don't, I hope. All the stuff that you don't need to know. You can find that on Twitter, again, at the Backup Punter. So let's look at some QB matchups you might look at this week. Marcus Mariota versus Oakland, that's intriguing as a streamer, maybe. Ryan Fitzpatrick versus Miami, maybe. The two that I'm really looking at, Kirk Cousins versus the New York Giants at home, because Kirk Cousins at home is excellent, and the Giants' secondary is not excellent. But one that I am tempted as hell by, Brian Hoyer versus the New Orleans Saints. If Brian Hoyer can step right back in and be okay, if he's 100% and he can step back in, that New Orleans Saints defense, not scary at all. Not one bit. That's as good a matchup as a quarterback can get. So it can elevate Brian Hoyer, who is he's an quarterback. That can elevate him to have a QB1 week. Looking at running back, of course, you're going to be looking at Thomas Rawls. You got to have him on a roster in your league with Marshawn Lynch out. Javorius Buck Allen, he's got to be added. He's a starting running back now in the NFL. Get him on a roster. Spencer Ware, I mentioned him last week. He got lucky with a Charkandrick West injury, put up a big day. Charkandrick West is listed day-to-day now, but definitely if you're a West owner, get Ware. But even if you're not, speculative ad. Ahmad Bradshaw with the Indianapolis Colts, he's figuring into the passing game a little more with Matt Hasselbeck. He's worth a look. Tevin Coleman is worth a look with Devonta Freeman's concussion. You know, if Freeman is cleared, then Coleman has no value, but keep an eye on it because you could steal a week worth of a starting running back if Freeman's forced to miss something. Then looking at wide receiver, Tyler Lockett. He's somebody that I'm growing extra interested in. Look at the Patriots receivers. Maybe you grab Harper, a guy like that. Keep an eye on Amendola, LaFell, some of these guys that are banged up because someone like Harper might need to rise up and play a number 2 role next week. Keep an eye on the Patriots. Marquez Wilson, Chicago Bears, is another guy that I do like, a guy that I have liked. Eddie Royal, banged up. Alshon Jeffrey, banged up. Marquez Wilson has shown the ability to step in and be a 1-week filler at starting wide receiver. So keep an eye on him. And then, one that I think is definitely worth an ad down the stretch, and that I think has some real boom potential, Devin Funchess of the Carolina Panthers. His first start this past week, 4 catches for 64 yards and a first down. So definitely, I think you want him on the bottom of a roster. Looking to tight end, as always, I'm going to tell you to add Crockett Gilmore. I think, with Matt Schaub in there, they're still going to be throwing the ball. He's going to put up yards. Crockett Gilmore, I think, is still a good one. And Zach Miller of the Chicago Bears. They have the Packers coming up, who are bad against tight ends. Especially if Martellus Bennett remains banged up, Zach Miller's a good one. Then looking at defenses. The New Orleans offense does still scare me, but why not the Houston Texans defense against them? Texans have only given up 29 points over the last 3 weeks. They are finally clicking. They're being what they were supposed to be all along. I'd check them out. Maybe you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Indianapolis Colts. Does that interest you any? Yeah, Matt Hasselbeck. That Buccaneers defense is really turning it on lately. Maybe there's something there. And one really interesting one, if you just kind of want to throw your hands up in the air and say, let's see what happens. Let's see how it goes. Cleveland Browns versus the Baltimore Ravens next week on Monday Night Football. An added bonus is that it will give you a reason to watch Monday Night Football. Maybe you can have a little fun with that one. I don't know. Maybe if your team is out of it already, or if you've already locked up your playoff spot, you might want to roll out the Brownies for Monday Night Football. So those are who I'm looking at on waivers. And always, if you have any questions about the waiver wire, trade possibilities, start and sit questions, anything like that, follow along at the Backup Punter. Tweet it over anytime you have. Am I telling you that what I answer will be correct? Will it be the gospel? No. But maybe it will affirm what you're already thinking. Or maybe if you're thinking of starting player A instead of player B, and I say start player B, maybe that'll just give you a little food for thought. And it'll send you through, that incredible few hours leading up to kickoff where you're just second-guessing yourself repeatedly and accepting that whatever you do is going to be wrong. That stuff about fantasy football that just makes it so fun. Maybe it'll lead to that. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. on iTunes. If you're not subscribed already, head over and do it. Christmas season is coming up. Give yourself a subscription to the Backup Punter Podcast. It's the worst Christmas ever. But if you haven't already, please do. It'll get right to your phone, your device each and every week, whether you do it through iTunes. It's also available via Stitcher, a podcaster a lot of folks use on Android devices and whatnot. So head over there and do that. Again, at the Backup Punter on Twitter. The website is thebackupunter.com. And my name continues to be, until further notice, Keegan Matheson. I thank you for tuning in for episode 34. And here's hoping that all of your punts in life stop on the 1 yard line. Let's talk next week.